Next time you're in Dollar Tree, grab a bottle of their Mod Podge and head on over to the Craft or Square section and grab some of these ceramic trays that they have. I love that Dollar Tree has started carrying these. These are actual ceramic trays without any finish over them. They're extremely unfinished. And what do I mean by unfinished? They're basically gonna soak up anything that you put on there if you don't use the right paints and prep these right, depending on what you're trying to recreate. So as you can see here, you can spray them with water over and over and over again, and it just absorbs right in there. And they'll do the same thing with acrylic paint as well. Whereas a finished piece of ceramic, if you spray something on top or you use acrylic paint, it will not completely absorb in immediately, okay? Or if you have a finished piece that you DIY'd that is sealed properly, that will also have the same effect. I want to create a mica powder paint on top of this piece, and to do that we're going to prep it using multi-surface paint. This is one of my favorites for ceramic, and often in my content I share this technique using glass. Here's an example of mica powder paint with an ombre effect with 3 different colors transitioning into the glass piece from Dollar Tree. Now I love sharing how to do this, and I have not shared how to do this on top of ceramic, so here we go. For the mica powder paint, we're just going to be mixing mica powder and Mod Podge. Using the multi-surface is a great base for me to be able to paint on top of. You'll notice that I did spray this with some water, and I made sure to get the water on top of the multi-surface to help me move the paint around and use less product. If you're going to just spray the water on the ceramic, that's not going to work out so well. Do keep in mind that this stuff is not self-leveling, so be purposeful with your brush strokes because there are minimal streaks, okay? Allow this to dry completely and then bring on in your Mod Podge. And then grab you some mica powder paint. Now, before y'all start asking, because I know I'm gonna have some people in the comments, I do not use any particular brand. I grab whatever is the cheapest off Amazon. To start off, I just started squeezing out some Mod Podge, and I noticed it was struggling and then realized it had extras. For real. Oh my God. Why? The whole bottle needs to go in the trash. That might have been the biggest Mod Podge booger I've seen in my entire life. The girth in that thing was, whew, and that was a new bottle. I'm gagging. I had to redo this voiceover several times. Anyhow, I tapped a little bit of mica powder. Now, the more mica powder you use, the more color you will have. I wanted this to have a very pastel pink color, so I used that white mica powder paint to mix in with this pink, and I really love the shade we got. And just a reminder, wear your PPE, people. If you're going to work with mica powder paint, it's a good idea to have on a mask and something to protect your eyes, okay? For our application, I'm just going to use a pouncer and put a little bit on there and tap all over our tray. This stuff dries really quick, okay? So you're going to want to work fast, especially if you've mixed up a pile. It will also dry. It'll start drying from the outside and work its way on in. And I usually do 2 to 3 layers to make sure everything is covered, especially if I'm working on glass. Now, ceramic doesn't really have to, or wood if you're using wood, it doesn't really have to be as many layers. That seems to, with a base underneath, come out really pigmented with just 1 layer, as long as you have that base underneath of there. But glass, I usually do 2 or 3, sometimes 4 or 5, and maybe even 6 or 7. I'm just kidding. I had to. Okay. Sorry. I've never done 6 or 7 coats of paint, but I did do 2 on this one, and I was super happy with how that came out. You can leave it plain, but I grabbed my TDS Creative stencil piece and cut a little section out. My stencil sets have a lot of little designs to choose from, and I just grabbed one, put it on here with my hand. If you want to use painter's tape to hold yours down, you can. I did not, and I just tapped right on top of this with a pouncer. Apply your stencils however you would like. When I was all done, I did kind of grab the tray and hold it up against the wall with the light reflecting in the back so you guys could get a really nice view of that beautiful shimmer. The cool thing about this is you do not have to seal over it if you choose not to. Now, adding the stencil in there, you would want to put a little layer of something over top of the stencil section. Other than that, the mica powder is really sealed in there with that Mod Podge. Let me know in the comments below if you're gonna try this hack. You're going to want to grab a canvas for this Dollar Tree Mod Podge DIY. Now, one of my favorite canvases from Dollar Tree are these larger square pieces. The 8x10s will work just fine. You can use the smaller ones, realistically, whatever one. We're going to make a large piece of wall decor with this piece. And that's because I found this joint at Dollar Tree. I was like, oh my gosh, when I seen it. Now, it just says wall decor on here, okay? But realistically, it's going to serve as like our 3D pop out. And if this makes sense, anybody that likes like doing clay and stuff like that, you guys just roll on with me. It'll make sense in a minute. First up, we're going to need to hit that background with the design. So this way we have a 3D effect to have that butterfly pop out. We're going to use my TDS Creative Decoupage tissue paper. How pretty is this design? How beautiful is it? I'm so excited we're using this piece. Now I'm just kind of centering it on our canvas, and then I'm using my hand to just measure out, and then I'm going to cut just a little bit wider because I want to wrap around our piece. For our application, I'm going to use my 3-inch TDS Creative brush. People, if you have never decoupaged a canvas, especially if you're a beginner, I highly recommend using them to get started. They're inexpensive. They come in multiple different sizes, so you can try your hand at different decoupage techniques and materials and not spend a lot of money. So if you make a mistake, it's not a big deal. Now, my tissue paper, I can spray the back. It helps to kind of manipulate the paper. You do not have to do this, and not all tissue paper is created equal, and I would definitely not do this to a napkin, but you do you. Who am I to tell you how to decoupage? Now, what I'm doing is just going to take a dry sponge and press the piece down. One of the reasons why I wanted to do this particular project is recently I've been getting a lot of questions about how to curve the decoupage tissue paper, and there are a multitude of ways to do that, but on a square surface I highly recommend leaving a hangover, then cutting the corner diagonally, and then as you press your piece down, you'll snip the excess off, but still leave that diagonal corner on the opposite side. So as you're decoupaging your piece and you press that one down, you can cut the excess off and it won't leave a gap. And I slowed the footage down right here so you can see how there's still overhang after I've Mod Podged the other side down, and it meets up in the corner, and once you cut it off, it is all together seamlessly. Once I did that to all the sides, I then brought out my multi-surface paints and a pouncer to tackle this beautiful 3D butterfly piece. Now, in my mind, I thought that this would be a cool alternative to molds for people that struggle with molds. So I wanted to share how this is just another creative way for you to get that 3D effect at home. I applied 2 layers of multi-surface and then came on in my Waverly chalk paint because that multi-surface was taking me too many coats. When everything was all dry, it was time to finish it up, and I grabbed one of these beautiful potted hanger pieces from Dollar Tree, and we're going to use the rope as a hanger. You could absolutely put whatever hangers you would like onto the back of your canvas. This is just how I chose to go about it. Once I had it to the right height, I cut off the excess, and then I brought on in the stapler. Now, you could use glue if you want, but you know, any opportunity that I have to use the stapler, we're gonna staple. To attach our little 3D piece, we're gonna just use some Titebond Quick and Thick, smush some of that on the back of there, and then hang our piece on the wall. I love those beautiful colors behind that white butterfly. There's so many different creative ways you can take this idea and remix it to match the decor in your home. You could paint the canvas, you could put different colors on the butterfly. Absolutely love how this turned out. For this Dollar Tree Mod Podge hack, we're going to be doing a reverse decoupage on this wood block I cut down. And to get started, we're going to take 2 different acrylic paints to get a nice base for a whitewash. Now I'm just mixing them in a little cup of water and giving our block a nice paint over, making sure to have a decent amount of paint in the center. And if you want to paint the piece completely, you go right ahead. I happen to like the look of those wood grains shining through. Now you can do this however you would like. I just printed out some designs off of my printer, and the printer really is up to you, but I recommend a laser over ink. Okay, that's just me. I feel like the laser works better. Ink will, listen, it's not my favorite. You do you. Okay. I can't control what kind of printer you got at home. I like the laser joints. Make sure to put a decent layer of Mod Podge over your area that you're going to be applying your paper down. And then you're going to want to make sure that you have rubbed that paper upside down where the design is on the Mod Podge, so it all looks like this. It's going to be completely upside down. You're not going to see the design. Let it dry overnight. I know it is a struggle, but you want to let it dry overnight or you're not going to have your designs coming out right. Now the next day I came back in with a little bit of water on a paper towel and tapped until it was wet, and then just rubbed with my finger until the design came through. Take your time doing this, and you will notice when you get down to just the design, okay, and be careful because you can actually just rub the design completely right off as well. So if you feel like you need to let this dry, stare at it for a minute and then come back in with your wet paper towel to continue to rub off so you don't completely rub your design off, absolutely go ahead. This is a little tedious to me. It is not one of my favorite ways to decoupage. It does turn out beautiful though. It just takes some patience. After it was all dry, I took a little burnishing sponge and went around getting some of them rough edges off. I always feel like whenever I do this that there's always like a little, like, feels like cotton over the top of it, and that just helps get rid of that. I finished this up by rubbing around a little bit of antique Waverly wax, sanding the piece down, and I did apply another layer of Mod Podge all over our piece. Let me know in the comments below if you guys have tried this Mod Podge hack and what kind of printer are you working with at home. Do you have an inkjet or do you have a laser? I've personally had both, and for now I'm just gonna stick with the laser printer. Dollar Tree's glass plates are my second favorite piece of glass to pick up and DIY on. There are just a lot of possibilities, especially when you're going to decoupage something like this tissue paper onto it. This is one of my favorite prints right now, and I have a lot of them. Even though the paper reminds me a lot of a napkin, it is a little bit more durable, so I do love that about this. We're going to trim this down using a little bit of water on the tip of a round paintbrush, and I'm going to give about 1 inch around the plate because we're going to be applying this to the back of the plate. So obviously it's not going to be an exact science, and this way if we have a little hangover, we're just going to get that off of there at the end of the day. It's not going to be a big deal, but this way it covers the entire back of our paper. The plate. I chose to go with 2 of the houses on this print. You could of course do whatever you want. I wanted to make like a little set with the 2 plates so that way they kind of matched. I decided to take my heat gun and dry off around the edges. Now I will tell you, with this tissue paper, you can use water to help smooth it out. It is thin, so you're going to have to be mindful with that. But I decided do my typical and dry it off before applying it to our piece and using the Mod Podge. There are two ways you can apply this that I feel you would get really good results. One is to coat the center of your plate and then apply your piece, and then go around the edges applying little by little. And this just ensures that you're gonna have a good hold without a lot of bubbles and a lot of wrinkles. I am using some cling wrap and a fan brush to apply this, just like I would if I was using a napkin. I do feel like this is thin enough that I can use my fan brush and still get really good results. And the cling wrap works really well to smooth out any wrinkling. Now, when you get to this point, you have to obviously attach the edge. So I did this in little sections and then pressed that part of our paper onto the plate. And I decided to take a second here to really show you guys why I love using fan brushes. And I talk about how thin the edges are because they really squeeze in up to where you already have that attachment between your piece and whatever you're placing on there, whether it's tissue or paper. And as you can see here, those tiny little bristles are just smooshed in there as far as they can up to where they're meeting the section that's already attached. And it really gives you a flawless attachment. It does take some patience. And some people ask, why don't you just do the whole piece? Mod Podge dries really quick, people. Don't start me lying to you. So sometimes when you go over the entire piece, and if you don't apply enough Mod Podge, certain sections will already have dried. This will create bubbles with your napkin or your paper, so you got to move quickly. Then you have to worry about, if you don't want to use this method and you want to cover the whole thing, you might use too much Mod Podge, making sure that it doesn't dry, and then that also will give you bubbles. I know, it's like, oh, what does and what doesn't. So just find a technique that works best for you. But as you can see here, it's pretty flawless. People, I love giving y'all options. So of course, on the second plate, I had to show you exactly what I was talking about and coat the whole back of this with a nice healthy layer of Mod Podge. Now I sped it up here so this way you don't have to sit and watch me slowly paint this, but I was moving quickly, at least in my mind. I was moving quickly because I wanted to make sure that this didn't start drying, and I did put a decent amount of Mod Podge on here, you feel me? So I then took the cling wrap and started going around the edges, and like I said, this is thin, but it's a little bit more durable than a napkin. So I felt a little bit more fuzzier inside, you know, smooshing this around until I didn't. There was a tear. As soon as I seen it happen, I immediately stopped and then picked the plate up and gingerly started to put it back in place. I took a little bit more Mod Podge. I put it there so this way that the paper would stick. And then I just went right on over it with my finger, doing a little tappity tap tap tapping. And it's seamless. You cannot even tell that there was a tear. So that's another thing I do really like about this paper, is that if you catch yourself before it gets too wild, you can fix your mistake and you won't know where that tear was. Whenever you're decoupaging on glass, you have some options here. But one, see how my little fingers are dangling behind our plate here? It's kind of translucent without anything behind it. You can see through it, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but I wanted my design to pop out a little bit. So I'm going to take some Mod Podge and seal this up before we apply a nice layer of white paint on here. And I just want to pause for a moment just to bring acknowledgement to the fact that someone at these manufacturing companies are skipping steps, okay? Because lately when I've been getting paintbrushes, I've been having to do the step that whoever is skipping by putting a little smoosh of glue in the tip of my brush to attach the stem of my brush. Like, what's happening here? Who's forgetting to actually make sure these are attached, okay? Because they're just causing me extra work. Anyhow, let's move on. I let these dry and completely trimmed around the edges, and these plates are absolutely stunning. If you're looking for more Mod Podge hack inspiration, check out this video right here. And if you're interested in trying any of the TDS creative products you see me using in today's video, check out thediystruggle.com or just click that more button underneath this video. The links are right there. As always, people, thank you all so much for hanging out with me today. Until next time.